I have absolutely no clue.
When Jeremy Clarkson traded supercars for farming, he did what any reasonable person would do. He bought a massive Lamborghini tractor that was too big to fit through his own gates. But that's just the start of his hilariously impractical farming choices.
Whoopsie-daisy. Come on.
From industrial chainsaws to converted hovercrafts, Clarkson's farm equipment collection is as outrageous as the man himself. You know, there's something deeply satisfying about watching a man who spent decades testing the world's fastest cars completely lose his mind trying to reverse a tractor through a hedge. But that's exactly what happened when Clarkson decided to purchase the Lamborghini Trattori R8 270 DCR. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with farm equipment, which, let's be honest, was Clarkson until about 3 years ago, this isn't just any tractor. This is the supercar of tractors. The R8 270 DCR is essentially what happens when Lamborghini decides to build something that can plow a field instead of race through the countryside. It's massive, it's powerful, and it's completely, utterly unnecessary for a farm Clarkson size. But that's why he bought it. The tractor boasts 270 horsepower, a sophisticated computer system that would put some airlines to shame, and dimensions that make a Hummer look compact. The problem? Well, there are several, and they all start with the fact that British farms were designed long before anyone thought about building tractors the size of small apartments. The narrow lanes, tight turns, and ancient gates that characterize the Cotswolds countryside became Clarkson's worst enemies. There's actually fantastic footage of him spending nearly an hour trying to maneuver this beast through a gateway that was clearly built for something much smaller, possibly even a horse and cart. But the real entertainment begins when you watch him attempt to master the computerized controls. Picture this, a man who can handle a McLaren P1 at top speed on a racetrack, completely defeated by a tractor's touchscreen interface. The Lamborghini's control system is so advanced that it requires what feels like a computer science degree to operate. You can practically see Clarkson's soul leaving his body every time he has to calibrate the power takeoff settings or adjust the hydraulic flow rates. What makes the situation even more amusing is that Clarkson, the man who once mocked Toyota's hybrid technology as pointless, now finds himself desperately thumbing through a 500-page manual trying to figure out how to adjust his tractor's differential lock settings. The Lamborghini's computer system offers so many customization options that you could probably program it to write poetry while plowing, if you can figure out how to use it in the first place. In stark contrast to this Italian monument to agricultural excess sits Clarkson's other tractor, a humble Massey Ferguson 135. This machine, built in an era when tractors were meant to simply do their job without fuss, represents everything the Lamborghini isn't. It's small enough to fit through any gate on the farm, simple enough that even Clarkson can operate it without consulting NASA, and reliable enough to start every morning without requiring a software update. Oh, and real quick, please take a moment and hit the subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. Now, if you thought the Lamborghini was Clarkson's only questionable tractor choice, let me introduce you to the JCB Fastrac. This is essentially what happens when someone asks, what if we made a tractor that could do motorway speed runs? And of course, Clarkson had to have one. The Fastrac can hit speeds of up to 40 miles per hour, making it less of a farm implement and more of a high-riding sports vehicle that happens to be able to pull a plow. Clarkson's history with the Fastrac goes back to his Top Gear days, where he once used it to demonstrate that tractors could indeed be exciting. The machine's ability to cruise at speeds that would make other tractors shake themselves apart perfectly aligns with his more power philosophy. It's like someone took the concept of a tractor and gave it a dose of motorsport engineering. But here's the thing about having a high-speed tractor. While it's brilliant for getting from one end of the farm to the other in record time, it's not exactly what you need for most farming tasks. It's a bit like using a Formula 1 car to do your grocery shopping. Yes, you'll get there faster, but it's a bit impractical. That said, the JCB Fastrac isn't just about speed. It's an engineering marvel built with serious thought behind it. Unlike conventional tractors, the Fastrac comes with full front and rear suspension, which not only makes it ridiculously smooth at high speeds, but also gives it an edge when traversing uneven terrain. Most tractors would rattle your bones on a rough field, but the Fastrac keeps things stable, making long hours in the cab much more bearable. But why would anyone build a tractor that can hit 40 miles per hour in the first place? The answer is simple: efficiency. Modern farming often requires moving between fields spread miles apart, and most traditional tractors crawl along at less than 25 miles per hour on the road. That means valuable time is lost just getting from one job to the next. The Fastrac was designed to fix that problem by allowing farmers to travel between fields at speeds more akin to a regular vehicle, cutting down on wasted time and making large-scale operations far more productive. Speaking of control, JCB didn't just slap a bigger engine in and call it a day. The Fastrac features all-around disc brakes with an anti-lock braking system, giving it stopping power that most farm vehicles can only dream of. Its rigid chassis adds to its stability, meaning it's not just fast, it's also surprisingly safe. And if you thought 40 miles per hour was impressive, JCB actually took things to a ridiculous extreme. In 2019, a heavily modified version of the Fastrac set a Guinness World Record as the fastest tractor on the planet, hitting an astonishing 153.771 miles per hour. While that particular model wasn't exactly practical for plowing fields, it proved just how much potential this machine has when pushed to the limit. At the end of the day, the Fastrac is a fascinating mix of practicality and sheer lunacy. It's got the speed, the comfort, and the braking power to handle the road like no other tractor. But whether you need a farm vehicle that can nearly outrun a sports car, that's another question entirely. Clarkson may have a knack for choosing the most impractical machines possible, but every once in a while, he stumbles upon something genuinely useful. Enter the JCB telehandler, a machine that, despite its rather uninspiring name, is actually one of the most versatile pieces of equipment on any modern farm. If the Lamborghini tractor is a supercar and the Fastrac is a speed demon, then the telehandler is the farm's Swiss Army knife. At first glance, the telehandler looks like a cross between a forklift and a crane, which isn't far from the truth. It's built for heavy lifting, with a telescopic boom that extends forward and upward, allowing it to reach places that a traditional loader simply can't. Depending on the model, the JCB Load-All telehandler can lift anywhere from 3,000 to over 12,000 pounds, making it an essential tool for stacking hay bales, moving pallets, and even handling construction materials. One of its biggest advantages is versatility. The front end can be fitted with a range of attachments, including buckets, pallet forks, and grapple claws, allowing it to perform multiple tasks without requiring separate machines. Unlike a standard forklift, which is limited to flat surfaces, the telehandler is designed for off-road conditions, featuring all-terrain tires, four-wheel drive, and four-wheel steering. This means it can maneuver over muddy fields, rough terrain, and uneven ground with ease, an important feature for a farm where every surface isn't a neatly paved parking lot. Another key feature is its 360-degree visibility and high-mounted cab, giving the operator a clear view of both the load and the surrounding area. Unlike traditional loaders, which can struggle with visibility when lifting heavy items, the telehandler's cab position allows for better control and precision. Safety is also a major factor. Many models come equipped with load-sensing hydraulics that adjust pressure based on the weight being lifted, preventing tipping accidents. But what really makes the telehandler stand out is its combination of power and precision. It's designed to handle both delicate and heavy-duty tasks. Whether it's carefully placing hay bales inside a barn or lifting steel beams on a construction site, its boom can be extended and retracted smoothly, making it possible to place loads exactly where they need to go without excessive repositioning. In a way, the JCB telehandler is one of the most practical machines on a farm. While tractors get all the glory, telehandlers do the dirty work, lifting, stacking, and hauling without much fanfare. And while it may not have the high-speed thrills of the Fastrac, or the sheer absurdity of Clarkson's hovercraft fertilizer sprayer, it does one thing incredibly well: keeping a farm running efficiently with minimal effort. Leave it to Clarkson to look at an air-sea rescue hovercraft and think, yes, this is exactly what my farm needs for spreading fertilizer. In what might be his most ambitious and questionably practical farming innovation yet, he converted a massive hovercraft into a fertilizer sprayer. The logic behind this madcap scheme actually made a strange kind of sense. Hovercrafts don't touch the ground, so they won't compact the soil, and they can glide over muddy fields without getting stuck. It's the kind of solution you'd expect from someone who spent their life thinking about aerodynamics rather than agriculture. The reality, however, was somewhat less elegant than the theory. Imagine a massive cushion of air attempting to precisely distribute fertilizer while floating 3 feet above the ground. It's about as accurate as trying to water your garden with a fire hose from a moving car. The sight of Clarkson bouncing across his fields in this converted beast, creating what can only be described as a fertilizer fog, perfectly encapsulates his unique approach to farming. He can be seen attempting to navigate this hovering behemoth between trees, looking less like a farmer and more like someone who's accidentally stumbled into a James Bond movie with agricultural intentions. And yet, you can't help but admire the sheer audacity of it all. While conventional farmers stick to their tried and true sprayers, Clarkson is out there essentially reinventing farming with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The hovercraft experiment might not have revolutionized modern day agriculture, but it certainly made for some entertaining television. Perhaps the most telling moment was when a neighboring farmer stopped by, took one look at the floating fertilizer dispenser, and simply shook his head in disbelief. It's worth noting that this wasn't even the most outlandish piece of equipment in Clarkson's collection. That honor belongs to something even more ridiculous. If you thought Clarkson's approach to tractors was excessive, wait until you hear about his chainsaw. In a world where most farmers make do with standard power tools, Clarkson naturally gravitated toward what can only be described as the Bugatti Chiron of chainsaws. This wasn't just any industrial-grade cutting tool. It was a behemoth that looked more suited to felling redwoods than managing a small English farm's woodland. The saw's bar was so long that it made Clarkson, a man who stands at 6'5", look like he was wielding a normal-sized chainsaw. The irony of Clarkson's chainsaw choice lies in its complete mismatch with his actual needs. Most of the trees on his farm could have been handled by a standard farm store chainsaw. But that wouldn't be the Clarkson way, would it? Instead, he opted for a professional-grade monster that probably has more horsepower than his first car. Watching him attempt to use this oversized tool for basic pruning tasks is like watching someone try to perform surgery with a broadsword. Technically possible, but wildly impractical. What makes this choice even more amusing is the stark contrast between Clarkson's chainsaw and the actual requirements of his farm. The majority of his woodland management tasks involved trimming branches no thicker than his arm. Yet here he was, equipped with something that could probably cut through a small house. It's like bringing a tank to a bicycle race. Impressive, but perhaps missing the point entirely. What makes all of this even more fascinating is how it contrasts with the actual requirements of running a working farm. While Clarkson was assembling his collection of agricultural supermachines, his farm manager, Caleb Cooper, was quietly getting things done with conventional equipment. The contrast between Clarkson's high-powered aspirations and the practical realities of farming creates a kind of chaos that's uniquely his own.